This movie's been in the pipeline at Paramount for quite a number of years now, with a few other filmmakers trying to make it and moving on, most notably Scorsese. Coming off of both the critical and commercial success of Apes, what about this project were you like, this is the next one I want to make, this is the one that I think I can bring to the screen?
Well, I don't really know the backstory of the whole Scorsese involvement in the project. I think the producer of this film, Irwin Winkler, has a long history of working with Martin Scorsese going back to Raging Bull, and so I wouldn't be surprised if when he was originally considering getting this project up and running, he talked to Scorsese about it and Scorsese expressed interest. But more often than not, that can happen and their name can get attached and they actually never intend to make something. So I think, you know, this was written first and foremost with a view to, I guess, you know, I don't know how it was originally conceived, to be honest. So, but as far as I'm concerned, my whole kind of philosophy on making movies is, and this is only my third film, so I'm at a place in my career where I want to be working, I want to be making films, because that's how you get better as a filmmaker. So when this came along, it was the perfect combination of something that was happening, was starring an actor that I really wanted to work with Mark Wahlberg, and also was a script that was really appealing. There've been other scripts that had come my way before where I couldn't quite visualize it, I couldn't quite see how to actually make the transition from page to screen, whereas with this, it's sort of like buying your perfect house, where you kind of go, that's exactly the house that I want to live in. So it was a kind of golden opportunity in that sense.
We talk about improvement, and which is obviously sort of in contrast with the Wahlberg character in the film, as he talks about kind of being a genius or don't bother, being born with it, or you can't really get it. Do you see that, or obviously from your words, is that something that you're in contrast with the character about, where you see, there's a place to start and a place to kind of elevate up, a way to say, this is what I would like to do, and this is how I become great at it, as opposed to like just having it in your genes, I guess, when you're born?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting study on what it means to be a genius, I think, because there are many people out there who believe that there's some God-given gift that's bestowed on certain people and it makes them great. But I think we all know that the people who are the very best at what they do, it comes through thousands and thousands of hours of practice. I mean, speaking as an English guy, David Beckham, as a footballer, was in many people's eyes a truly great footballer. And he just spent hours on the pitch just practicing his set pieces, and that's what makes you great. That's what makes you, in the eyes of many, a genius. Of course, you have to have an innate talent to go with it, but at the same time, you can become something really special just by putting in the work. And Jim, our main character, is a guy who actually sees it in slightly more cynical ways. He sees it more kind of like, oh, you either have it or you don't. Mm-hmm. You're either a winner or you're a loser. This or nothing. And I think that's a very jaded outlook on the world. And I think it's also representative of how we as a society see things. It's like you either get rich quick or you're, in for a lifetime of poverty. And I think that can sometimes sort of turn against people. I think if you put in the work, if you do the time, you can actually carve something out that is really special. Well,
I mean, that goes also to a little bit of what he talks about, where he says, the middle of the road is, being in the middle is kind of safe. There's no chance, there's no risk, I guess, being taken, but as a result, you're still progressing at a nice, steady level. They're not rocking the boat, but there's nothing, high risk, high reward. Does that kind of go into some of your filmmaking as well then, I guess? Because, obviously you could easily say, well, along my career, I'll play it safe. I'll take, the films that people expect me to do, or, I'll do this project. Does that kind of play into your kind of desires as a filmmaker, is to say, well, I would like to take some chances here and there, but calculated ones?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I took the film I did before this, knowing full well that it was in the eyes of many a poisoned chalice. It was a film that could have failed dismally, and it was a big distance to fall if it had done. There's a lot of money involved, and you're kind of like the captain of an oil tanker. It's very hard to sort of be nimble when you're making a film of that scale. So as a filmmaker, it's hard to evolve. Do you know what I mean? It's about so much more. And of course, it's extraordinary to be able to work with amazing teams of people and amazing actors and work in the kind of within the Hollywood framework, because you get the best in the business in so many ways. But from a storytelling point of view, it's hard to break the boundaries of people's expectations of what those movies should be. So I think for me, coming off of that, I really wanted to do something where I could, for better or for worse, do something more character-driven and more creatively driven.
Is a complicated lead something that drives you about a film? Because obviously the Apes film, if you look at Caesar, you're asking people to put themselves in and root for an ape against their own humanity. And here you're talking about a guy who, I mean, not that a lead has to be likable, but I mean he's rather despicable at times, and it becomes difficult for people to latch on to that. I mean,
Sure.
So is that something that interests you, is to try and find these intriguing characters that may not be on the page or on the surface easy to get to know or want to know, and try to turn the story around about that?
I guess so. I mean, I think there's something appealing always about anti-heroes, people who are outsiders, people who kind of look to rage against the machine and buck the system. Caesar in Apes was certainly that character. He was an outsider and an outcast, following this very sort of Spartacus story. This guy, Jim, is a lot more on the page, a lot more unlikable, because he's very honest, I think, too honest at times. And I think with those sort of characters, more often than not, there's always this kind of pressure to sort of let's make him more likable, let's empathize with him more. And for me, it was always about, as long as he's interesting, then we're okay. You don't have to like somebody. As long as you're curious about them and interested in them, then you're telling the story in the right way.
I want to ask you about Star Trek 3, because obviously that job has now kind of come open, and about a year ago your name was heavily rumored to possibly be involved in that. Is that or have there been any I mean, obviously it's kind of come together late, but have there ever been any further discussions about that? And would there be obviously an interest to kind of say, the Enterprise, I would do that?
It's an amazing mythology, and I love Gene Roddenberry in terms of what he set out to do from the get-go, which was sort of wagon train to the stars and follow this journey of exploration through the Starship Enterprise and those characters. So it's different to Star Wars in that respect, and I think there's a lot to be done with the franchise. I mean, I gather that there's going to be a changing of the guard sort of thing that's happening, but I don't know. I mean, it all comes down to what's the best story to tell and whether I'm right for it, I guess.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.